We finally get to see what happened with Juliet when she came back into the silo at the end of season 2. Earlier in this season, when Martha met up with Juliet, she knew what was going down the whole time. Flame keepers and old flames become one and the same, and Bernard's in the void looking like a grilled burrito with the comb over to the side. Welcome to Real Enigmas and Theories. Tap that like and hype on your way in, and let's get right into this. Silo Season 3, Episode 5 is titled Voices in the Dark, and they was not playing with this title at all. We've got people singing about voices, calling people to their duty. The voice in the vault is calling Camille to her duty. Silo 1 is listening to the voices on the radio channels. And the relics are calling Juliet's memories back like every version of the Temptations since Otis. Then we only got one quick scene of the before times when somebody remotely takes over Daniel's car before we even get GTA 6. So we started this episode off taking us back to when Juliet and Bernard got trapped inside the airlock during the fire sanitation cycle. Shirley comes out running into the corridor, followed by Knox, Teddy, Billings, and Hank. Then the fire stops, and Billings says that the protocol requires them to leave the door sealed for 48 hours. But Knox is pretty much like, fuck that protocol, clear the cafeteria so we can open the door and let them back in. And that's heavy because the cleaning is like a ritual where the entire silo goes into the cafeteria to watch somebody go through that same airlock and die. They wipe the camera and then they fall dead while everybody watches. But this time they flip that whole ritual. The cafeteria is cleared so that they can pull 2 people back in from the fire. Juliet and Bernard were cast into the flames and then brought back through the doorway that people normally use to leave the silo. Now, Juliet had on the fire suit from Silo 17, so she's not as badly burnt, but Bernard had the regular cleaning suit on, which his whole body got cooked. And that's another slick reversal between those two characters. Bernard keeps his memories intact, but the fire destroys his body. Juliet keeps her body intact, but the drugs burn through her memories. Then Knox and Teddy take the doors off the hinges, drill holes, and put ropes through them, and they lay Juliet and Bernard on top of them so they can lower them down into medical. And while they were being lowered, the people in the silo started singing about voices being called to their duty. And it felt like the symbolic Phoenix from the Flames death and rebirth ritual. Seeing them getting lowered down to medical reminded me of the burial of Mayor Johns and Deputy Marnes. This was symbolically the death of their former selves, in my opinion. Now, in my last video about the Georgia Guidestones and the Georgia Peach, I spoke about the symbolism right there in the silo exit. You can go check out this video right here. But the symbolism shows you with this one insignia here that we see several times all throughout the silo is the 12 people with their arms raised. Then we see the tree and the spiral, and there's also a symbol of a gear. But those symbols are sitting right at the entrance/exit, right where people enter the silo and right where people leave to clean, where now Juliet and Bernard are reborn through the flames. And I think this also symbolizes them being the new flame keepers. Juliet and Bernard literally come out of the flames, and that sets an entire group of people on a search for relics, lost memories, finding out the truth, and leading up to liberation for the silo. So when I said that the airlock was a ritual doorway, this episode turns around and gives us a full ritual right there in plain sight. Then you have the song that they were singing about voices being called to their duty, while there's an actual voice behind the vault telling Camille what her duty is. Imagine growing up in the silo and this song was something that you sang. And then one day you become the head of IT. And then that song starts hitting totally different when you sit and think about the lyrics. You got the pack, the founders, and the order. And the voice is calling you to make these tough decisions. Everyone in the silo has a duty, and songs like this help to reinforce that notion. even for the head of IT. I mean, you don't even have to become the head of IT to come to this realization. Once you become the shadow, the voice begins to talk to you. You're allowed to read the order. And songs like this just totally hit different than it would for somebody that's normal in the silo. And this wasn't a normal flashback. This was actually Bernard telling Juliet what happened because she doesn't remember any of it. And for me, this was such a dope storytelling move because instead of memory being passed down, it's like it's being passed up to Juliet. Bernard's sitting there telling Juliet the story of Juliet. She's sitting there listening to another person explain her history. And that's a mini version of the silo in a nutshell. People don't know their own history and somebody else tells them what happened. The pack tells them the rules of their society and the order tells the leadership what they're allowed to tell the people and what to do in case of certain events. That's just like Juliet's memories being erased was a mini version of what's about to happen to the silo if they get that vitamin D plus in the water supply. Then after Bernard tells her all of that, she asks him, how the hell did he end up down here? And I thought this was so dope. Sims comes out the back like, how the fuck do you think he ends up down here? Giving us that whole backstory, flashback scene and everything. And then Sims coming out saying, how the fuck do you think right before the credits roll was genius. That got us off to a really good start for this episode. And we finally get the story of what Robert has been doing the entire time for those 3 months. Last episode, I kind of figured that Robert had been the person behind Nurse Amy switching Juliet's drugs with the placebo and sending her to utility closet 76 because he was already standing there waiting. This episode confirms that Robert set the whole thing up and not only just set it up, but he really got busy with his resources, pulling favors from all types of people. He was just really getting the job done. And this episode dug into that and kind of made us understand about his deceptive manners with his wife. I mean, I got to keep it a beanbag with you. Paul Billings and Robert Sims are both in sanctioned marriages, but it seems like the unsanctioned relationships are the ones that really where the people love each other. I don't know, but it just shows you that, you know, they have some real serious marital problems. Dude is the sheriff and his wife is running around here as one of the outsiders. Then you have this guy as the judge. His wife is the head of IT, a position that he always wanted. And that's kind of breaking their home up. I mean, yo, who would have thought that 300 years later, the marriage issues would be so complex? Then we go back to the vault where the voice tells Robert and Anthony to leave while Camille stays behind. They walked in there together as a family, but that vault voice split that shit up like one of them $1,200 Chris Brown pictures at the concert. And then when Camille came home, Robert was sitting there on the couch with a pistol like Anthony Hopkins in Fracture. I know Robert was on go mode because he didn't know what instructions that thing gave his wife. He knows that Camille could walk through that door with an order to kill him, and that shows how deep the distrust already was. So Robert was so consumed on what was going on with his family that he didn't even know that Juliet came back. And Camille comes in and tells him that the rebellion has been calmed down because of her return and everything. But Bernard actually got burnt up in the airlock and they're down to medical. She also tells him that they're threats to the silo along with Lucas Kyle and that she needs him to take care of them. But she doesn't tell him what makes them dangerous. And she just flat out tells him that she can't tell him. And I know that really cuts Robert because he spent years making moves under Bernard and keeping Camille informed about what was going on. And she was standing beside him during his climb to the top. And she knew all of the things that he had to do to gain power. But now that Camille gets inside the vault, speaks to the voice, and starts locking Robert outside of the information, but still needs him to handle the dirty work. So you know that this is just cutting him up inside. Bernard never officially made him the shadow, so he never gave him the information about the voice or the order either. Robert has just been being loyal to people who keep telling him that he doesn't deserve to know what he's protecting. And now his wife is doing the same thing. Camille pulled a slick, dirty move and kind of reminded him that he used to handle threats for Bernard before, and she needs him to do it again. So, I mean, I would have told her, look, you do that shit yourself. Leave me out of it. But he hits her with the okie doke and makes her believe that he actually did it, but he did the exact opposite. He stages Bernard's death, the incineration, and gets Martha and Carla to help hide Bernard in the void. Then he uses his connections to push the ideal of Juliet becoming mayor, which means that Sims is the one and only reason why she got that position in the first place. Come to find out, it was all Robert who set up the whole play to make Camille think that they was using Juliet as a symbol to keep the people calm. But Robert was using Juliet as a piece against that vault voice. The funny thing is that the vault voice fell for the shit too. He coordinates Nurse Amy switching the forgetting pills with the placebo. He got Regina out here collecting relics with fake sheriff badges, and Martha's working on the radio. Robert keeps Bernard alive, though, so that he can explain what that order says and predict what Camille's next move is going to be, because he's read the order, so he knows how she's going to respond to some of these things. It's almost like Bernard is coaching and Robert is running the plays. And that means we should go back and look at all the scenes with Robert earlier in this season differently. Even that episode where she met up with Martha Walker knew what was going on the whole time too. For instance, when he told Juliet he hoped she remembered holding his family hostage, he already knew she had not been receiving the drugs. And I knew that there was something up with that. Why did he want her to know that? And then he also tells her that he was the judge. And holding his family hostage connects right back to Anthony. And think about it. Anthony had gave his father back to Pez. And at that time, Robert knew that that could become a part of the plan. When he spoke to Camille about spending time with their family and creating memories, it wasn't just about him seeing what happened to Juliet. He already understood that the voice was preparing to erase the entire silo's memories. So when he went to his wife and said that he wanted to create memories, she automatically was like, why are you talking about memories? And then he put on the illest act. He was like, because I just ran into Juliet and she didn't know who her father was and He was acting for her. Like, he wasn't really concerned about that. He had the playbook. He had Bernard down there telling him like, yo, she's going to erase the silo's memories and stuff like that. So he was double acting on that. Like, I thought his performance was great as Common, like performing as Robert Sims, but Robert Sims was actually acting to Camille because he had a whole plan going through. I'm going to tell you, I got goosebumps when that settled in. I was like, yo, that was fire the way they gave that information. And now we know he had an entire plan going on. We thought the motivation was just his son, but he was realizing at that moment that she was willing to kill the boy inside of Anthony's body. Like, she was willing to kill his memories and everything off like that. She thinks that she's really doing it so her son could live on, but she's really just raising another product for this reset. And with Bernard telling him what the order would say, Robert is starting to understand that the voice doesn't care about who they are as long as it can keep the silo operating. So I think this was a very big turning point for Robert, and that's why they showed it to us in those two different dynamics. They had us thinking that the motivation was about his son, but the whole time he knew that his wife was about to erase the silo's memories. Then we get Martha and Bernard talking about the radios. Martha asks if the silo has its own signal, and Bernard explains that the different frequencies are called channels and that Silo 1 monitors all of them. And if you know me, then the word channel pops out to mind because we're talking about channeling energies, channeling voices, and channeling notions into each other's minds and working in this plan together. Channeling the flame keeper energy is what this whole group of people were doing. And speaking of channels, if this channel is earning your like and your shares, go ahead and do all that dope YouTube stuff. The algorithm has not been friendly to us. It's been kind of like pulling the safeguard pipe on my channel pretty much. But, you can show your support for the channel by sharing, liking, sending this to somebody who watches the show. Let's get back to it. Bernard explains to them that the Silo 1 is monitoring all of the channels, and he tells them that they had to speak in code which directly connects to the hidden communication from the last few episodes. Stephen Price, that hacker dude, was using coded chess moves, and both are being watched by the same exact system. Both groups needed a language hidden underneath the language, and now we have another connection to the title with the voices moving through the channels. Everything from the writing and the storytelling and the way that they format everything on this show, even all the way down to the way they title the episodes, feels so intentional, and I love that type of attention to detail. So Sims walks in and tells them that Juliet took the oath for mayor from her hospital bed, and Bernard lets them know right away that they are about to give her the forgetting drug because she went into Silo 17. That's another thing that he was keeping from Sims last season, and I'm still wondering if the voice can see everything in the silo and it was just playing the game as if it's some kind of experiment. Bernard did tell the voice where she went, but that doesn't mean that it can't see it for itself, so I'm wondering if that's a possibility. It might know that she spoke to Solo Jimmy, and if so, it may know that she planned to cap the pipe and return to help the survivors, so that's probably why it wanted to erase her memories instead of just flat out kill her. And that's most definitely due to the planning of Sims by sending that guy up there to stoke the fires of having her elected for mayor. And this is a really dope scene because this is when Bernard actually explains that the forgetting drug is part of the order. The pact is like the public rule book, and the order is the private rule book for the head of IT in the shadow. The pact controls the people, and the order contains the instructions for events that the founders knew could happen. So this is coming from like a psychological standpoint. They actually planned all of this before the silos were even invented. I mean, think about it. They have a jail cell or a holding cell right there at the door in the entrance. It's crazy because the founders had to predict these things on what would happen based on human psychology and then put things in place to keep all of it running efficiently to continue to be these silos. They knew the things that could happen, the rebellion, people refusing to clean. They even thought about it like, who's going to clean the lens on the camera outside so people can see outside? They knew that some people were going to learn too much. They already had the memory suppression drugs ready. The order says it's essential to keep the objects away from the person because those objects can trigger the memories. So they already had the psychology and the order of operations for how they were going to run the silo. Let's think back to the episode where Juliet had the bad dreams and Camille came in there and was doing the breathing exercise with her. And then they showed us Dr. Serkovich doing the same breathing exercise with Charlotte in the before times. So I'm sure that breathing exercise is in the order and tells them how to deal with the patients that are under the memory suppression drugs. Because of Dr. Serkovich's research and work, they know that the body holds the memory, and they also know that the relics or items can jog these memories and make these memories come back. So there it is, straight up confirmation that the relics are illegal because the relics wake people up. And this is why Juliet losing her memory was so important to the story, because it's something that existed before the silo, and it's a major element moving forward with the surviving humans. I mean, I know a lot of people were complaining about Juliet losing her memory at the beginning of season 3, and she's waking up without any memories. But this really takes us right back to season 1 with Gloria Hildebrandt, the woman that was trying to be the fertility counselor for Allison when she was trying to get pregnant. She was one of the last remaining flame keepers as well. Juliet found her drugged up in that long-term care medical, and she was being drugged by the same nurse who was administering the forgetting drug to Juliet. Nurse Amy. So this shows that the drug distribution through Sims always existed, and he was using his connections to get the placebo. And this is why Nurse Amy was getting so much screen time earlier in the season. And shout out to Nurse Amy, because she definitely sacrificed herself so Juliet could make it over to Closet 76. And we haven't seen her since. So what's going on with Nurse Amy? Shout out to her. The fact that they brought Nurse Amy back and how she was looking so sinister in season 1 when she was drugging Gloria like that. She's just drugging this little old lady, you know, sticking the needle in her arm and whatnot, making her forget everything. They made her look so sinister in season 1. They bring her back for season 3. And, you know, that system had already convinced everybody that Gloria was unstable. But when Juliet showed up and gave her that Georgia travel guide, she started remembering things. And that relic helped wake her up. And this is why we saw Sims was real heavy on relic. We used to see him in the room with the relics. He had a vault of his own that had a bunch of different relics. And they put the relics in biohazard bags. So these relics are actually hazardous to the system. Biohazard, almost like the relics will like infect the population in a way that makes the seeds in the silo unusable. And this is why they have the safeguard. That is so crazy. Yo, if you didn't see my video, my in-between video that I talked about the Georgia Guidestones, I'm gonna tag it in the end of this video. So you gotta go check that out. Gloria explained that the Flame Keepers were being hunted and that the system had been stopping them from having children. They would tell the women that their birth control had been removed while leaving it in place. So the system was attacking both memory and bloodlines of those who possess traits of disobedience and curiosity. Drug the person so that they can't remember and keep the relics away so nothing wakes them up. Stop them from having children so they can't pass forward the truth. Then wait for the whole bloodline to disappear. Juliet's mother, Hannah, had the heart of a flame keeper, and her father removed the birth control so that she could have Juliet. And that's why Bernard told her that she wasn't even supposed to be born. I think that inquisitive, truth-seeking nature comes from Helen. And we know that Helen had the Pez dispenser, so she had to end up in the silo somehow. Now her bloodline is being systematically erased from the silo. But it's so crazy that the same person that told her that she wasn't supposed to be born, Coach Bernard, is calling the plays, and now Robert is running the plays to collect objects that's going to wake Juliet's memories up. This is coming from the same dude that told her that she was not supposed to be born. How poetic. And then they give us another slick ritual. Robert goes to Regina holding the cat, explaining the plan, and passes the cat along with the placebo pills. After she takes the cat and the pills, she starts telling him what she needs to complete the job. 10 fake sheriff's badges so that she can have something to trade for the relics. So Robert handed her the cat and the mission at the same time. Then she starts moving around the silo like a cat, sneaking through the black market, trading fake badges and hunting for forbidden objects like a cat burglar. Fake badges and fake memory loss pills. Robert is literally fighting the system with fake versions of its own tools, playing his wife and the vault voice like fools. No joke. The storytelling is next level in this episode, folks. Then Kyle and Kennedy are moving through the secret passages and they run into Robert and Juliet. They all go to Martha's place, where Martha and Regina have collected objects tied to Juliet's life right in her face. The whole setup looks like an altar for her memories wrapped in it. And I could be wrong, but that box looks just like the one Juliet and her mother had that rabbit in it. The wool sweater she wore around George, the watch that belonged to George and later came through her father, toys, badges, items tied to mechanical. People start handling Juliet pieces of her own life but nothing completely breaks through. Robert and Juliet are headed back up to the top of the silo when he stops and tells Juliet about the Pez. After Juliet held Camille and Anthony hostage, Robert gave the Pez to his son because he was afraid. That notion turned into him wishing for the magic of memories to help his son remember him. Robert didn't know the details about the medication and how it worked as far as what the order says, but he was the one distributing it for Bernard with other people, so he knew that the relics had to be kept away. And this is the reason why season 1 presented his motivation as finding forbidden relics. But now that Camille might erase his son's memories any day now, he becomes the judge who looks at these relics as a positive thing because it actually would help him in his situation with his family. Anthony gave the relic back to his father a few episodes ago, and now Robert gives it to Juliet, and she remembers everything in the silo. Silo 17, Solo Jimmy, the pipe can be capped, and the mission to go back and get the people from Silo 17. The Pez is one of the main keys to this entire story. I thought it was going to be the watch because it came from her father, but then that whole thing was just like a dud right there with Hank talking to her and everything. It didn't bring back anything, but the Pez did its thing. Daniel gave it to Helen in the before times, and now it's moved through 300 years of lies, resets, rebellions, and memory drugs, and it keeps showing up at the exact moment when somebody needs to remember something. So that little plastic candy dispenser is carrying more history than everybody in Silo 17 and 18 combined. Now, in real life, objects can hold memory because scientists have shown that materials can physically retain evidence of what happened to it. Pressure, heat, bending, and repeating force. And those events can rearrange the material in a way that it preserves a measurable history. Physical objects keep receipts and can carry two different types of memory. The emotional memory that they trigger inside of a person and the physical history stored inside of the object itself. And relics are witnesses that can't be threatened or sent out of the silo to clean anything. So if they're just laying around, they might wake somebody up. So after the Pez brings Juliet back far enough for her to remember the safeguard, she goes back to the down deep to figure out how to cap the pipe. And Camille is moving down the silo at the same time Robert is moving up the silo, and they spot each other across the gap. And I have to point out that this shot was very symbolic, and it kind of says everything about their relationship. I thought it was poetic how they had them meet at the gap. During this entire episode, they kind of drove the plot to us that Sims and his wife were mentally separated. And then at the end of the episode, they bring us them meeting at the gap. I just thought it was poetic, dope, well thought out, great storytelling. Bravo. Camille chose the voices in the dark. Robert chose the memories of the people in his family. They still love each other, but the rebellion has opened up a giant gap in the staircase, a giant gap in their relationship, while the gaps in Juliet's memories are being filled. And speaking of things being hidden in the gap, Billings is still investigating Orla Kent's murder. He slept in Carla's office waiting for her because it's messed up at his crib like it is at the Sims household. And Carla shows Billings what Orla found. Somebody has been stealing critical supplies, and these items are placed inside the silo at the beginning because the people can't manufacture replacements. So that means whatever they're stealing, if it's gone, it's gone. So these missing supplies include special light bulbs for the gardens and the food to grow. And Carla says when she first became head of supplies 20 years ago, they had about 70 years of bulbs left, but now they only have 2 years of bulbs left. And that's 2 years before the gardens lose light, the food supply starts collapsing, and the silo dies hungry in the dark. So Orla didn't get slumped over some bullshit items in the stolen supplies. She found somebody stealing years from the future. That parallel is real because Orla got Merc for items that preserve the future, and Roberts got Regina looking for relics that preserve the past. The storytelling is A1, and for the smaller side plot to come out from behind and smack us with this new threat is pretty dope. So now the question is not only who murdered Orla, but what are they doing with decades worth of critical supplies? And what's going on? Are they trying to hold the silo hostage? Are they fighting back? What is going on? What do they need that requires them to have these garden light bulbs? Let me know what you thought about this plot thread in the comments. I mean, the Orla Kent plot thread went from 0 to 100. Juliet gets her memories back while a new serious threat is on the horizon and a murder mystery that still needs to be solved. Then we get the one before time scene that was real short and quick, but it was right at the end of the episode and it took us for a ride. You had Daniel and Helen driving to meet Sam because he called Daniel about the rabbit hole he discovered about his sister's mission. And while they were in the van, something takes control of it, like what was happening during Charlotte's mission. Now, at first, I thought that the black goo just disabled the planes and made them crash. But now I think someone actually had control of the planes and killed the squad mates, but left her alive for a purpose. Not just to make the plane malfunction, but to actually save her life on purpose. Let me know in the comments where you think the vehicle is headed. I'm now wondering, how in the hell do you find a guy under a light post renting out sketchy vans with horses on the steering wheel? I didn't notice any black goo in the van, so do you think it's the same thing as what happened to Charlotte, or do you think the guy under the light post rented out a remote control car? What do you think about the rebirthing ritual symbolism with Bernard and Juliet? Why do you think the Pez unlocked more of Juliet's memory than the watch or the wool sweater or any of the other items? Who got rid of Orla Kent? Who's the one that's actually stealing the critical supplies? And what do you think they're using them for? Are they trying to blackmail the silo into changing or something? What's going on with those critical supplies being stolen? And do you think it's the same technology controlling Daniel's car that's operating inside of the vaults? Let me know what you peeped in the comments. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you like this video, go ahead and do all that dope YouTube stuff and send this to somebody who watches the show. And if you're not subbed yet, hopefully this will be the video to make you do it. Go check out this video right here about the Georgia peaches and the Georgia guidestones and a whole bunch of other stuff that we have in that video. This video was really dope. It didn't get too many views, but hopefully if you made it to the end of this video, I can definitely tell you this video is for you. Peace.